My MIL secretly replaced my wife's birth control with vitamins and got her pregnant on purpose. I found the evidence on a Thursday afternoon while Jennifer was at work, though I didn't know what I was looking at yet. I was cleaning out the guest bathroom at my mother's house after we'd stayed the weekend, looking for Jennifer's earring that had fallen behind the toilet when I saw the birth control pack wedged between the vanity and the wall. The pink plastic case was identical to the one Jennifer kept in her purse. I picked it up, thinking she'd dropped a backup pack, and that's when I noticed something strange. The pills inside looked different, chalkier, less smooth. I pressed one between my fingers and it crumbled into powder. Regular birth control pills don't do that. They're compressed tight, designed to survive being carried around in purses and pockets. These dissolved like children's vitamins. I stood there in my mother's bathroom with white powder on my fingers, and my brain couldn't make sense of what I was holding. Then I heard my mother's voice from downstairs, calling up to ask if I'd found what I was looking for, and something cold settled in my stomach. Jennifer and I had been married for 6 months, together for 3 years before that. We met in college during our senior year, both studying engineering, both obsessively focused on building careers before we even thought about kids. We talked about it on our second date because Jennifer didn't believe in wasting time on someone who wanted completely different things. 5 years, we'd agreed. We'd work, save money, buy a house, get established, and then we'd talk about starting a family. My mother had smiled and nodded when we told her, but I'd seen something flicker across her face. Disappointment, maybe, or disagreement. She'd started making comments almost immediately after the wedding. Little jokes about how accidents happen, how no birth control is 100% effective, how she'd gotten pregnant with me when she wasn't planning to, and it was the best thing that ever happened to her. Jennifer laughed them off. I told my mother to stop. She'd just smile and say she was kidding. Couldn't anyone take a joke anymore? But then the dinner invitations started. Twice a week, sometimes 3 times. Family dinners, she called them. She'd make Jennifer's favorite foods, ask about our jobs, seem genuinely interested in our lives. Jennifer actually liked spending time with her. She'd grown up with distant parents who prioritized their own careers over relationships, and she appreciated that my mother seemed to care. We'd eat, talk, and Jennifer would leave her purse in the guest room because it was more comfortable to sit without a bag digging into her hip. I'd thought nothing of it. Why would I? She was my mother, the woman who raised me, who drove me to soccer practice and helped with homework and threw me a graduation party. The idea that she might be doing something horrible in that guest room while we ate her pot roast downstairs never even entered my mind. That's the thing about trust. It makes you stupid. It makes you blind to evidence that would be obvious if you were looking at anyone else. I stood in that bathroom holding chalky fake pills, and part of me still wanted to believe there was an innocent explanation. I went downstairs with the pack in my pocket. My mother was in the kitchen loading the dishwasher, humming something soft and cheerful. She looked up when I came in and smiled. "Did you find it?" She meant the earring. I told her no, that it must have fallen somewhere else. She nodded and went back to rinsing plates. I watched her hands, the way she moved, so normal and ordinary. "Mom," I said, "do you know anything about birth control pills?" She froze for just a second, then continued wiping down a dish. "What kind of question is that?" Her voice was light, curious. "Just wondering, like, what they're made of, if they're dissolvable." She turned to look at me, and her face was perfectly neutral. "Why would you be wondering about that?" I pulled the pack from my pocket and set it on the counter between us. "Because I found this in your bathroom, behind the vanity, and the pills inside turn to powder when you touch them." I watched her face, watched for guilt or shock or fear, but she just looked at the pack, then at me, and sighed. "You weren't supposed to find that." That was all she said. Not a denial, not an excuse, just acknowledgement that I'd discovered something I shouldn't have. "What is it?" I asked, even though I already knew. Some part of me knew. "Calcium tablets," she said. "I make them myself. They look just like the real thing if you're not paying attention." The room tilted. I grabbed the counter to steady myself. "You've been switching Jennifer's birth control?" She didn't answer, just started drying her hands on a towel. Slow, methodical movements. "Mom, tell me you didn't do that." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and her eyes were completely calm. "You're wasting time, Thomas, both of you. You're 26 years old. Jennifer's 26. These are your prime years for having healthy children, and you're throwing them away for what? Jobs? Money? You can work forever. You can't have babies forever." My hands were shaking. "That wasn't your decision to make." She set the towel down and crossed her arms. "Someone had to make it. You two were being irresponsible." I thought about Jennifer, about how careful she was with her pills, how she set an alarm on her phone every single day at 8 p.m. to make sure she never missed one, about how confused and scared she'd been 2 months ago when the pregnancy test came back positive. We'd been in our tiny apartment bathroom and she'd looked at those 2 pink lines like they were a death sentence. Not because she didn't want kids eventually, but because this wasn't the plan. This wasn't what we'd agreed on. We weren't ready. We didn't have enough saved. We were still paying off student loans, and I'd held her while she cried and told her it was going to be okay, that we'd figure it out together, that sometimes life doesn't go according to plan. I'd thought it was bad luck, The 1% failure rate that everyone knows about but never thinks will happen to them. But it wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. It was my mother standing in her kitchen, telling me she'd deliberately sabotaged my wife's medication because she thought she knew better than we did about our own lives. How long? My voice came out strangled. How long have you been doing this? She tilted her head, considering. 4 months, maybe 5. It takes a while to work, you know. You have to replace enough pills that there's actually a gap in protection. Just swapping 1 or 2 wouldn't do anything. She said it so casually, like she was explaining a recipe. Jennifer's 12 weeks pregnant right now, which means you were doing this before she even conceived. You planned this. She smiled. Actually smiled. Of course I planned it. Do you think I'm stupid? I researched how birth control works, how many pills you can miss before the protection fails. I ordered vitamin tablets online that were the exact same size and color as her brand. I practiced making the switch fast, in under a minute, because I couldn't risk you two noticing I was gone too long. I thought through every detail. There was pride in her voice, pride in how thoroughly she'd violated Jennifer's body and autonomy. I wanted to throw up. You're insane, I said. Something dangerous flashed in her eyes. Don't you dare speak to me like that. I'm your mother. I gave birth to you. I raised you by myself after your father left. I sacrificed everything for you, and this is how you talk to me? Her voice was rising, getting shrill. I did this for you, for your family. Someday you'll have that baby in your arms and you'll realize I was right. You'll thank me. I backed toward the door. I needed to get out of there. Needed to get to Jennifer. Stay away from us, I managed. Stay away from my wife and stay away from our baby. She followed me to the door, her face twisted into something I didn't recognize. That baby exists because of me. You'd still be playing house in your little apartment if I hadn't intervened. I gave you this gift and you're too blind to see it. I got in my car and drove. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the steering wheel. I kept seeing Jennifer's face when she'd taken that pregnancy test. The fear, the way she'd asked me if I was disappointed in her, like it was somehow her fault for not preventing something she'd done everything possible to prevent. Jennifer was at her office when I called. She worked for a tech startup downtown, long hours but good pay, and the promise of equity if the company took off. She'd been trying to hide the morning sickness from her boss because she was up for a promotion and didn't want pregnancy to factor into the decision. When she answered, I could hear the busy hum of the office behind her. Hey babe, what's up? Her voice was cheerful, normal. I almost couldn't do it, almost couldn't shatter her world with what I had to tell her. Can you come home? I need to talk to you about something. The cheerfulness evaporated. Is everything okay? Are you okay? I told her I was fine, that I just needed her to come home. She said she'd leave right away. I drove to our apartment and sat in the parking lot waiting for her. 30 minutes later, her car pulled in next to mine. She was out and at my window before I'd even unbuckled. Thomas, you're scaring me. What happened? I showed her the pill pack. She took it from me, confused. Why do you have my birth control? Then she looked closer. Wait, this isn't mine. Mine's in my purse. She pulled her purse off her shoulder and dug through it, pulling out an identical pink case. See? She held them side by side. The cases were the same. The pills inside looked identical, unless you were really examining them. Pop one out, I said, from the pack I gave you. She did, pressed it between her fingers. It crumbled. I watched her face change as she understood. First confusion, then comprehension, then horror. Where did you find this? Her voice was barely a whisper. In my mother's bathroom, wedged behind the vanity. Jennifer looked at her own pack, the one from her purse. Check this one too. I took a pill out and pressed it. It crumbled. She took another. Same thing. All of them were fake. All of them had been replaced. Jennifer made a sound like someone had punched her in the stomach and sat down hard on the parking lot pavement. She's been switching them. Every time we go there for dinner, every time I leave my purse in the guest room. She looked up at me. How long? I told her everything. What my mother had said. How she'd admitted to planning it. How proud she'd been of her research and preparation. Jennifer listened without interrupting, her hand unconsciously moving to her stomach. When I finished, she was crying, not sobbing, just silent tears running down her face. I thought it was my fault, she said. I thought I'd messed up somehow, taken a pill late or missed one and forgotten. I went through my phone looking at the alarm logs, trying to figure out when I'd screwed up, and I couldn't find anything. I thought I was losing my mind. She looked at the fake pills scattered on the pavement. She took away my choice. She made me pregnant against my will. She stopped, couldn't finish, but I knew what she was thinking. That's rape. Maybe not in the legal definition, but in the visceral violation of it. Someone had tampered with her body without consent, had forced a pregnancy on her that she'd explicitly said she didn't want yet. And it was my mother, the woman who'd seemed so sweet and welcoming, who'd invited us to dinner and asked about Jennifer's job and acted like she cared. We have to tell someone, Jennifer said. She was standing now, pacing. The police. We have to report this. I wanted to agree. Wanted to think that reporting it would fix things, that there would be consequences and justice. But I also knew how these things worked. Report what exactly? That my mother switched your birth control pills? Do we have proof? Can we prove those pills came from her house and not somewhere else? Jennifer stopped pacing. You found them in her bathroom. I found them behind a vanity. Any lawyer would say I planted them there. And even if we could prove it, what law did she break? Is it illegal to swap someone's medication? Is there a specific statute for reproductive coercion? I'd already been thinking about this during the drive home, already running through scenarios in my head. The police might not even take the report seriously. They might say it's a family matter, a civil issue, not criminal. Jennifer's face crumpled. So she just gets away with it? She violates me and there's no consequence? I didn't have an answer. We stood in the parking lot while the sun set, and I felt completely helpless. That night, Jennifer called her sister Diana. Diana was a lawyer, though not the kind who'd handle something like this. She did corporate contracts, but she knew the law, and she knew people who might be able to help. Jennifer put her on speaker and explained everything. There was a long silence when she finished. Then Diana said, "You need to document everything right now. Take photos of those fake pills. Take photos of the real ones for comparison. Write down exactly where Tom found them and when. Write down everything Martha said when he confronted her. Dates, times, exact words if possible. Get it all on paper while it's fresh." Her voice was tight with controlled anger. "As for legal action, it's complicated. This might fall under assault or battery in some states, specifically reproductive battery if your state recognizes it. It could potentially be fraud or theft since she stole your medication and replaced it with something else. But honestly, Jen, the laws around this are murky. Most states haven't caught up to the idea that someone can commit a crime by tampering with birth control." Jennifer was crying again. "So, there's nothing we can do?" Diana sighed. "I didn't say that. I said it's complicated. You might be able to get a restraining order based on the violation and any threats she's made. You can definitely pursue a civil suit for damages, emotional distress, any medical costs related to the pregnancy if you're considering termination, or prenatal care costs if you're not. You can make her life financially difficult. But criminal charges?" She paused. "That's going to be an uphill battle. You'd need a prosecutor willing to take it on, and even then, they'd have to prove intent and causation beyond a reasonable doubt. A good defense attorney would argue that you can't prove Martha actually switched the pills, that maybe you just had a birth control failure, that the pills Tom found could have come from anywhere." The helplessness I'd felt earlier expanded into rage. "So, she deliberately gets my wife pregnant against her will and might face zero consequences?" Diana's voice went cold. "I'm not saying she'll face zero consequences. I'm saying the legal system isn't designed for this kind of violation. But there are other ways to make sure she pays." We spent that night documenting everything like Diana instructed. Jennifer wrote out a timeline of every dinner at Martha's house, every time she'd left her purse unattended. I wrote out the conversation in the kitchen, exactly what Martha had said and how she'd said it. We took photos of the fake pills from every angle, photos of the real pills from Jennifer's current pack, photos of the pill case and where I'd found it. We created a file folder that looked like evidence for a trial. The next day, Jennifer called her doctor. She told the nurse she needed an emergency appointment, that she had questions about her pregnancy. They got her in that afternoon. I went with her. We sat in the examination room, and when the doctor came in, Jennifer showed her the pills, explained what had happened. The doctor's face went pale. "This is reproductive coercion," she said immediately. "I'm going to document this in your file. I'm also going to give you information about counseling services and legal resources. What was done to you is a form of assault." She looked at me. "Your mother needs to be reported." The doctor spent an hour with us. She explained that what Martha had done could have serious medical implications beyond just the pregnancy itself. Birth control pills aren't just for preventing pregnancy. They regulate hormones, prevent ovarian cysts, manage endometriosis. Suddenly stopping them can cause problems. And getting pregnant while thinking you're protected means Jennifer hadn't been taking prenatal vitamins, or avoiding things like alcohol, or certain medications that can harm a developing fetus. "You're lucky," the doctor said. 12 weeks in and everything looks healthy. But this could have gone very differently. She printed out resources, support groups for reproductive coercion survivors, lawyers who specialized in reproductive rights, therapists who understood medical trauma. Jennifer took all of it with shaking hands. On the way out, she stopped in the parking lot and turned to me. "I don't know if I can do this. Have this baby. Every time I feel it move or see it on an ultrasound, I'm going to think about how it got here, how my choice was taken away." She was sobbing now. "I wanted kids someday, I did, but not like this. Not because someone forced it." I held her while she cried. "Whatever you decide, I support you. If you want to terminate, we'll do that. If you want to continue the pregnancy, we'll do that. This is your choice. Finally, it's your choice." She pressed her face against my chest. "I don't even know what I want anymore. I feel like she's stolen that from me too. The ability to know what I want." We stood there for a long time. Eventually, Jennifer pulled away and wiped her face. "I need time to think. I need to not see your mother or talk about your mother or think about what she did. Can we just go home and pretend this isn't happening for a few hours?" I said yes, even though I knew we couldn't actually pretend. This was happening whether we acknowledged it or not. The pregnancy was real. The violation was real. And Martha was out there, probably congratulating herself on a job well done. That thought made me want to break something. I'd spent my whole life thinking my mother was a good person. Self-sacrificing, loving, devoted. Now I was seeing her clearly for the first time, and she was a monster. My phone started ringing 2 days later. My mother calling over and over. I didn't answer. She left voicemails. The first few were apologetic, saying she'd overreacted and wanted to explain herself better. When I didn't respond, they got angry. She said I was being dramatic, that I was letting Jennifer poison me against my own family, that she couldn't believe I was treating her this way after everything she'd done for me. I deleted them without listening all the way through. Then she started texting, long paragraphs about how she'd only wanted what was best for us, how we'd understand when we were older and had more life experience, how every parent makes decisions their children don't agree with in the moment. I blocked her number. She showed up at our apartment. Jennifer was home alone when the buzzer rang. She made the mistake of answering the intercom. Martha's voice came through, sweet and concerned. "Jennifer, honey, it's Martha. Can we talk? I brought lunch." Jennifer's hands went cold. "Go away, Martha. Please. I just want to explain. I think there's been a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding. You tampered with my medication and got me pregnant against my will. That's not something we need to talk about." A pause. Then Martha's voice changed, got harder. "You're turning my son against me. You're trying to isolate him from his own mother. I won't let you do that." Jennifer hung up the intercom and called me at work. I left immediately. By the time I got home 20 minutes later, Martha was gone, but Jennifer was shaking. "She stood down there for 15 minutes, Jennifer said, kept pressing the buzzer, kept saying she just wanted to talk. Then she started yelling through the intercom about how I was a manipulative bitch who was stealing her son. Someone from another apartment told her to leave or they'd call the cops, and she finally went. I called Diana, told her what had happened. "That's harassment," Diana said immediately. "Document it. Save any voicemails or texts. If she shows up again, call the police right away and file a report. You're going to need a paper trail for the restraining order." We filed for the restraining order that week. It required a court hearing. We had to sit in a courtroom with Martha 20 feet away and explain to a judge why we needed legal protection from her. I told the story of finding the pills. Jennifer told the story of the pregnancy, the violation, the fear. Martha sat there looking wounded and confused, like she couldn't understand why we were being so cruel. When it was her turn to speak, she cried, told the judge that she was a single mother who'd raised her son alone, that she'd sacrificed everything for him and only wanted him to be happy, that she'd made a mistake in how she expressed her concerns about their timeline for children, but she'd never meant any harm, that Jennifer was emotionally unstable and had convinced Thomas to turn against his own mother. "Your Honor," she said, wiping her eyes with the tissue, "I'm a victim here too. My son won't speak to me. My grandchild is growing inside that woman and I'm not allowed to be part of it, all because I cared too much." The judge looked at the evidence, the photos of the pills, the doctor's statement, the timeline we'd created. He looked at Martha, then he granted the restraining order. Temporary, pending a full hearing in 30 days. Martha had to stay at least 500 feet away from us in our apartment. She couldn't contact us directly or through third parties. If she violated it, she'd be arrested. As we left the courtroom, she tried to approach us. The bailiff stopped her. She stood there crying as we walked away. I felt nothing. The next week, Jennifer made her decision. She was keeping the baby. "Not because of your mother," she explained one night as we lay in bed. "Not because I've forgiven what she did or accepted it, but because I've thought about it every way I can, and I still want to be a mother someday. I just wanted it to be on my terms when I was ready. But I'm 12 weeks in now. I've seen the ultrasound. I've heard the heartbeat, and I can't undo it." She turned to look at me. "But I need you to understand something. This baby is ours, mine and yours. Your mother doesn't get to be part of this. Not at the birth, not at birthdays, not ever. She ended her relationship with this child the moment she forced its existence." I agreed immediately. I'd already been thinking the same thing. Martha had wanted a grandchild so desperately that she'd committed a crime to get one, but her actions had ensured she'd never actually know that grandchild. There was a certain poetic justice in that, though it didn't make up for what she'd done. The full restraining order hearing happened 4 weeks later. This time, Diana had helped us find a lawyer who specialized in domestic abuse cases. She'd agreed to represent us pro bono after hearing what happened. Her name was Catherine Lloyd, and she was terrifying in the best way. She presented the evidence methodically. The pills, the doctor's statement, the timeline, the harassment, after we'd confronted Martha. She called Jennifer to the stand and asked her to describe the emotional impact. Jennifer talked about how violated she felt, how she'd had nightmares about someone breaking into our apartment and tampering with her medication, how she couldn't trust food or drinks that weren't prepared by her own hands because what if Martha found another way to interfere, how the pregnancy that should have been joyful felt tainted and wrong. Martha's lawyer, a tired-looking public defender, tried to argue that Martha had just been overzealous in her desire for grandchildren, that she'd made a mistake but wasn't dangerous. Catherine cut him apart. "A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday or saying the wrong thing at dinner," she said. "What Ms. Reynolds did was premeditated, calculated reproductive coercion. She researched birth control mechanics. She manufactured fake pills. She systematically replaced medication over a period of months. This wasn't a mistake. This was assault. The judge agreed. The restraining order was made permanent. 5 years. Renewable. Martha also had to pay our legal fees. As she left the courtroom, she looked at me with such hatred that I barely recognized her. "This isn't over," she mouthed. But it was. We made sure it was. We changed our phone numbers, blocked her on every social media platform, told our friends and Jennifer's family not to pass along any information about us. We were erasing Martha from our lives as thoroughly as she'd tried to force her way into them. Jennifer started seeing a therapist who specialized in trauma. I went with her sometimes. We talked about trust and violation and how to move forward when something fundamental has been broken. The therapist said it was normal for Jennifer to have complicated feelings about the pregnancy, that she could love the baby while hating how it came to be, that those two things could exist simultaneously. Jennifer nodded, but I could see she was struggling. Every doctor's appointment, every time someone congratulated her, every time a stranger touched her belly without asking, it reminded her that this wasn't her choice. We were 24 weeks along when the first letter arrived. It came to Jennifer's workplace, addressed to her directly. She opened it, thinking it was related to a client project. Instead, it was from Martha. The letter was typed, not handwritten, probably so we couldn't easily prove it came from her. It talked about how much Martha was suffering, how cruel we were being, how she prayed every night that we'd forgive her and let her be part of her grandchild's life. It included a photo of me as a baby in Martha's arms. "I gave him life," the letter said. "I gave him everything, and now he's throwing me away like I'm nothing. Please, Jennifer, you're a woman. You understand the bond between mother and child. Don't let him keep me from my grandchild. I'm begging you." Jennifer called me immediately, her voice shaking. Then she called Catherine. "She's violating the restraining order," Catherine said. "Contact via letter to her workplace counts. Take the letter directly to the police and file a report. She'll be arrested." We did. The police took the report and the letter as evidence. That evening, 2 officers showed up at Martha's house and arrested her. I know because she called me from jail, and I made the mistake of answering an unfamiliar number. "Are you happy now?" Her voice was vicious. "Your own mother is in jail because you can't forgive a simple mistake." I should have hung up, but something in me needed to say this. "You didn't make a mistake. You committed a crime. You violated my wife's body and her autonomy. You forced a pregnancy on her because you decided your wants were more important than her rights. That's not love. That's control. And yeah, I'm happy you're in jail. You deserve to be there." She screamed at me then, called me an ungrateful bastard, said Jennifer had brainwashed me, said she hoped we'd suffer the way she was suffering. I hung up and blocked that number too. Martha was released the next day. Her bail was set at $5,000, and someone, probably an aunt or cousin, posted it. But now she had a criminal charge pending, violation of a protective order. If convicted, she could face jail time and a larger fine. Catherine said it was unlikely she'd get more than probation for a first offense, but it would be on her record. It would follow her. And if she violated the order again, the penalties would be much worse. For 2 months, things were quiet. Jennifer's belly grew. We took childbirth classes and bought baby things and pretended we were a normal couple preparing for a normal baby. Sometimes, we could almost believe it. Then, Jennifer was at the grocery store alone when she saw Martha in the produce section. They were 30 feet apart. Martha was clearly there deliberately, watching her. Jennifer abandoned her cart and left immediately, hands shaking so badly she could barely get her keys into the ignition. She called me from the car. I called Catherine. Catherine called the police. But by the time they arrived, Martha was gone. And technically, she hadn't approached or spoken to Jennifer. She'd just been in the same public place. "It's intimidation," Catherine said when we met with her the next day. "She wants Jennifer to feel unsafe everywhere. But unless she actually violates the specific terms of the order, no contact within 500 feet, there's nothing we can charge her with." I looked at Jennifer, who'd barely slept the night before. "So, what do we do?" Catherine hesitated. "You could consider moving. Get a new address she doesn't know. Make it harder for her to find you." We moved 3 weeks later. Didn't tell anyone except Diana and Jennifer's parents where we were going. Forwarded our mail to a P.O. box. Changed our routines completely. Jennifer quit her job, not because they'd forced her to, but because Martha knew where she worked. She found a remote position with a company in another state. I started working from home more often. We were rebuilding our lives around avoiding my mother. It was exhausting. It was expensive. And it made me furious that we had to do it at all. The baby was due in 8 weeks. Jennifer was huge and uncomfortable and scared. Scared of childbirth, scared of becoming a mother under these circumstances, scared that Martha would find a way to show up at the hospital. We registered at a hospital 30 miles from our new apartment using fake names on the paperwork. The staff thought we were paranoid, but when we explained the situation, they understood. They flagged our file as high risk for harassment, added notes that only Jennifer and I were allowed information about her admission or room number, that anyone claiming to be family should be turned away, and security should be called. At 36 weeks, Jennifer went into early labor. We'd been at home watching television when her water broke. The drive to the hospital felt endless. I kept checking the rearview mirror, terrified I'd see Martha's car following us, but there was nothing, no one, just us and the empty highway. Jennifer was admitted immediately. They hooked her up to monitors and checked her cervix and said it was time, the baby was coming, whether we were ready or not. I held Jennifer's hand through contractions that made her scream. 12 hours of labor, 12 hours of pain and fear and anticipation. And then suddenly there was a baby, our daughter. 6 pounds, 4 ounces, perfect and screaming and covered in vernix. They put her on Jennifer's chest, and Jennifer started crying. Not sad crying. Relief. She's here, Jennifer whispered. She's actually here, and she's ours. I kissed Jennifer's forehead and looked at our daughter and felt something settle in my chest. This was our family, the 3 of us, and Martha had no part in it. We named her Diana, after Jennifer's sister. Not Martha. Never Martha. We were in the recovery room when the nurse came in, looking uncomfortable. There's a woman in the lobby claiming to be the baby's grandmother. She's demanding to see you. My blood went cold. What did you tell her? Nothing. We have you flagged as no visitors except approved family. But she's getting agitated. She's saying you're keeping her from her grandchild illegally. Security is with her now. I looked at Jennifer, who'd gone pale. Call the police, I said. She has a restraining order. She's not allowed within 500 feet of us. The nurse nodded and left. 10 minutes later, we heard shouting in the hallway. Martha's voice, shrill and desperate. That's my grandchild. You can't keep me from my grandchild. I have rights. Security's voices, calm but firm. Ma'am, you need to leave the hospital. The police are on their way. More shouting. The sound of a struggle. Then silence. A police officer came to our room 20 minutes later. He took our statement and the restraining order information. Said Martha had been arrested again, this time for trespassing and violating a protective order. She'll be held until her arraignment, he said. Given that this is her second violation, the judge will probably set a higher bail. She might be in for a few days. Jennifer was crying again, but this time from anger. I just gave birth. I'm sitting here with our baby and she's still finding ways to terrorize us. When does it end? The officer looked genuinely sympathetic. I can't promise it'll end soon, but each time she violates the order, the consequences get worse. Eventually she'll either stop or she'll end up in prison for a significant stretch. The system will catch up to her. He left, and we were alone again with Diana. I looked at my daughter, asleep in her bassinet, completely unaware of the chaos around her birth. We're going to keep you safe, I told her. Your grandmother is never going to hurt you the way she hurt your mom. I promise you that. Jennifer reached for my hand. We need to leave the state. Once I'm recovered, once Diana is old enough to travel, we need to go somewhere Martha can't find us. I'd been thinking the same thing. We'd already given up so much, jobs and friends and the life we'd planned. What was one more thing? Where do you want to go? Jennifer was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Oregon. My parents are there. We'll have support. And it's 3,000 miles away. Martha was sentenced 3 months later. She'd violated the restraining order twice, refused to take responsibility in court, and shown up at our apartment one more time before trial, screaming through the door that we'd stolen her grandchild. The judge had heard enough. 2 years in county jail, followed by 5 years probation. During probation, she was forbidden from contacting us in any way or attempting to locate us. If she violated probation, she'd go back to prison. She'll be eligible for parole in 12 months if she behaves, Catherine told us. But even if she gets out early, the no-contact order stands. She violates it, she goes back in. Jennifer nodded, but I could see she didn't feel safe. And neither did I. Because we both knew Martha. She didn't give up. She didn't let go. Prison might slow her down, but it wouldn't stop her. We put the apartment up for sale, sold most of our furniture, packed what we needed into a moving truck, and drove west with our 4-month-old daughter strapped into her car seat. We didn't tell anyone we were leaving except Diana, who hugged us both and told us she was proud of us for protecting our family. Some people don't deserve second chances, she said. Your mother is one of them. Oregon was quiet, rainy and green, and far from everything we'd known. We rented a small house near Jennifer's parents and started over. New jobs, new routines, new life. Diana grew, started smiling, then laughing, then crawling. Every milestone felt like a small victory, something Martha didn't get to see or claim credit for. Jennifer slowly began to heal. The nightmares came less frequently. She stopped checking over her shoulder every time we went out. She started to bond with Diana in a way she hadn't been able to before, when the pregnancy still felt like a violation instead of a choice. I love her, Jennifer told me one night when Diana was 8 months old. I really actually love her, not just because I'm supposed to, but because she's ours. She's this amazing little person, and I can't imagine life without her now. I kissed her. You're an incredible mother. She smiled, but there was sadness in it. I wish I'd gotten to choose this. I wish your mother hadn't stolen that from me. But Diana didn't do anything wrong. She's innocent in all of this. That was the truth we'd been building toward. Diana was innocent. And we were going to make sure she grew up knowing she was wanted and loved, even if her existence began with a crime. Martha was released after 14 months. We found out through Catherine, who'd asked to be notified when she got out. The no-contact order was still in effect, and Martha had been warned explicitly that any attempt to find us or reach out would send her back to prison. For 6 months, there was nothing. No letters, no calls, no mysterious appearances. We started to believe maybe she'd finally given up. Then Jennifer's car was broken into outside a grocery store in Portland. Nothing was stolen, but there was a photo on the driver's seat, a photo of Diana that had been taken recently, within the last few weeks. Diana wearing the blue jacket we'd just bought her, sitting in her stroller at a park we visited regularly. Someone had been watching us. Someone had been close enough to photograph our daughter, and we both knew exactly who it was. We called Catherine. She called the police. They opened an investigation, but without proof it was Martha, there was nothing they could charge her with. "She's not stupid," Catherine said. "She's being careful. She knows if she's caught violating the order, it's over for her. But she wants you to know she's watching. She wants you afraid." It worked. We were terrified. We stopped going to our regular places, changed our routine again, put cameras up around the house. But the feeling of being watched never went away. 2 months later, another photo appeared. This one was slipped under our front door while we slept. Diana at her daycare, playing in the sandbox. The message was clear. Martha knew where we lived, knew where Diana went to school, could get to her whenever she wanted. Jennifer broke down. "We can't keep running. She's going to find us no matter where we go. She's going to keep doing this until we give her what she wants." I held her while she sobbed, but I knew she was wrong. Martha didn't want access to Diana. She wanted to punish us, wanted us to suffer the way she believed she'd suffered. Giving in wouldn't end this. It would only make it worse. I called Catherine and told her we needed a new strategy. "She's stalking you," Catherine said. "Hire a private investigator. Document everywhere she goes, everyone she talks to. Build a case for criminal stalking charges. It's harder to prove than a restraining order violation, but if we can show a pattern of behavior intended to harass and intimidate, we can get her arrested again." We hired the investigator. Cost us thousands of dollars we didn't have, but what choice did we have? He followed Martha for 3 weeks and compiled a report that made my stomach turn. She'd moved to Oregon, was living in a motel 40 miles from us, had been photographing us regularly, had folders full of pictures of Diana, of Jennifer, of our house, had notes about our schedules. The investigator got photos of all of it during a period when Martha left her motel room unlocked. It was enough. Catherine filed charges. Martha was arrested again, this time for felony stalking. The evidence was overwhelming. Photos, notes, proof she'd violated her probation by leaving the state and attempting to locate us. Her bail was set at $50,000. No one posted it. She sat in jail awaiting trial. The trial took 8 months to schedule. During that time, we lived in relative peace. Diana turned 2, started talking in full sentences. We celebrated her birthday with Jennifer's family and tried not to think about the grandmother who'd forced her into existence and then stalked her for the first 2 years of her life. Martha was convicted on all charges. The jury took 3 hours to deliberate. She was sentenced to 5 years in state prison, no possibility of parole for at least 3. After her release, she'd be on supervised probation for life with a permanent no-contact order. She'd also been flagged in a database that would alert us if she was released early or violated probation in any way. As they led her out of the courtroom, she looked at me one last time. But there was no hatred this time, just emptiness, like something inside her had finally broken. I felt nothing watching her go. No satisfaction, no relief, no grief for the mother I thought I'd had. Just a quiet determination to make sure Diana never had to know her. We stayed in Oregon, built a life we could be proud of. Jennifer went back to school and got her master's degree. I got promoted at work. Diana started kindergarten, made friends, showed no signs of the trauma that surrounded her birth. Sometimes Jennifer still had nightmares. Sometimes I'd find her watching Diana sleep with tears in her eyes. But we were healing. Slowly, painfully, but genuinely. And that was more than Martha deserved to have given us. She'd tried to force a family into existence on her terms. Instead, she'd created one that existed in spite of her. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.